The internet has corrupted a whole generation of the population and will continue to do so for generations to come, and I think that's bad. Maybe? I don't know. Sometimes the internet bleeds into reality, and then the little people in my phone who give me money are suddenly real, and I violently beat them with a stick. You can't know me. Why do you know me? Who do you think you are? Sometimes the online digital community that we built on here is a great thing, and other times you open up Twitter to see a 15-tweet thread critically analyzing the ethics of the Cupid shuffle and promptly remember why war is good, actually. Part 1. Hyperpop in the welfare state. That's not what the script says, but that's what I wanted to say. Have you ever been outside and saw someone with a very specific look that maybe you can't explain, but you just kind of thought to yourself, wow, that is a very chronically online individual? And or an average bisexual. They're kind of the same. Well, congratulations, you just experienced internet corruption. But what is that? Internet corruption is the name I've given to the common phenomenon where the online bleeds into reality. You see, at some point, I believe we made a shift to like a new model of experience, where instead of the internet being something we use, it's now become a part of us. And so like there's the internet and there's the real world, and like the border between it is becoming like more and more blurred as the days go on. And it's just gonna keep doing that until some incel invents the metaverse, and now all of a sudden we're sticking chips in our brains. Every day I fall further and further into an abyss of nihilistic absurdism, and now this is funny to me. You see, currently the internet's biggest exports are non-binary awakenings and foot fetishes, but at this point in the online digital age, due to the lives we lead in the real world versus the virtual reality we experience on a day-to-day basis, I am willing to be both brave and unique and attempt to classify these dual existences as two separate realms of life. They are simultaneously different, yet unfortunately one and the same. There are two genders: studio apartment haver or WikiFeed enthusiast. You choose now. You're one or the other, liberal. The average screen time in the US is about 7 hours across all platforms, but yours is higher. These two realities we simultaneously live in are significant because the more our digital reality grows, the more likely it is to seep into our real-world day-to-day lives. As one area grows, the more likely it is to dominate other aspects of your life. That's just human nature, baby. For example, have you ever seen a piece of clothing on Instagram and gone out and bought it? Have you ever seen a meme on Twitter and shown it to a friend? Have you ever played a video game and then committed a felony? The point is, the internet is fun and good, and I see no issues. Corruption. You've been corrupt. Don't get me wrong, for as scary of a thumbnail and title that I've geniusly crafted for this YouTubian optimized piece of content, I don't think it's all bad. Sometimes being corrupt is fun. Like clipping a Mia Cole YouTube video and throwing it up on your Mia Cole Clips channel. That's very corrupt, but I give you my full permission to do so. Make all the money you want off me, see if I care. Go forth and spread me like wildfire. We'll see who's laughing after that. Okay, so like basically the internet has become like so prevalent in our lives that as a society we've moved closer and closer to developing what's known as like an internet culture. It started with the kiss. How did it end up with piss? This is the pipeline. You watch one Minecraft video and the next thing you know you're buying a one-way ticket to Turning Point USA and meeting your hero. I love you. How did we get here, and is it bad? And most importantly, what's this bitch in fishnets and eyeliner gonna do about it? Well, it starts off little and then unsurprisingly balloons out of control. Stage 1 of this infection is vernacular and trends. Now, when discussing this topic, it's important to note that a lot of internet-specific dialect is mostly, how do I say this? 9 times out of 10, it's either watered down or exact copies of African American vernacular. AAVE, much like everything else that black culture produces, is like just stolen and ripped to shreds by white people. That's me. Those are my guys. I apologize for my guys. I promise I told them not to. They don't listen to me. That's not to say the internet can't naturally come up with its own speech patterns. It definitely can. But colonization has been a proven effective and fun way to develop trends. However, no matter the origin of popular phrases or speech patterns, the point is it was popularized via the internet. And because it's shared through social media, it gains the title of internet speak, or even more specifically, TikTok speech. Even if you don't necessarily know what I mean, you might implicitly recognize these phrases as specifically TikTok. Phrases like, it's the blank for me, or the way I thought blank, or even words like dead ass, which traces its roots back to New York slang from the early 90s. These have all become examples of TikTok dialect. And if that doesn't make you want to unalive yourself, don't worry, there's more. The word unalive, as used as a verb and not an adjective, is a perfect example of internet-specific dialect. The word in its generic beta form means not alive, but now has taken on a new meaning, of which I can't say on YouTube because of the very reason it was created. The word unalive was specifically repurposed to get past algorithmic censors. That way, once again, you can make these jokes without fear of being brutally punished by the terms of service. God is dead. And if you want to get even more graphic with it, use the hashtag #FakeBody on TikTok. Now you can dance as provocatively or show as much skin as you want because the robot doesn't know it's real. Hey, wait, isn't this app? Now, whether that actually works or not is up for debate, but either way, the phrase was created to solve a specifically online issue, like cyberbullying or your parents' divorce. Other times, words or phrases are created or repopularized using the language of memes. For example, what I'm doing right now is cringe. Because analyzing memes is obviously the most obnoxious and annoying shit. I don't know who would ever do that. There are specific sayings that are, in itself, considered memes. And they're extremely effective because they're literally algorithmically proven to unlock some kind of oxytocin response in your brain, thus making them addictive. It takes all the effort out of actually being funny and instead relies on a collective in-group to outsource your personality to. And if any of you feel called out right now, good, suffer. The internet has its dirty little grippers in every aspect of this because a meme has a half-life of about 2 days before people on Twitter start saying it's annoying. And because these phrases are so good at hacking your brain for attention, much like a Miyako YouTube video, the second they become boring in any sense of the word, you will instantly reject them like just a guttural reaction, a visceral point of cringe. Speaking of which, I am in terrible pain. Oh God, please help me. Trends. Trends are an even more obvious way of how the internet bleeds into reality. Like, for example, when a bunch of teenagers stole a bunch of useless shit from their schools. That was weird. I don't know why they did that.
It's very disappointing.
Or the Tide Pod Challenge, where you eat laundry detergent and then die. This was peak internet culture. I'm sorry to tell you, it's been downhill ever since. Or the original popular trend, the increase in drone Man, I sure do love America. Speaking of which, trends don't have to just be challenges. They can also just be general dumb shit, like people putting neon lights in their room or fake leaves on their walls. Imagine literally not even having enough brain power to even do just the tiniest bit of interior decorating without following the masses like a sheep in the stalks. You just look stupid. The point is, the internet has already slipped into your life far more than you'll ever even know. The walls are caving in on you and there's nothing you can do about it. Your brain is currently being harvested by tons of algorithms for monetary profit, but it's okay, because I'll use those funds and personally fund a drastic overhaul of the US government. I control reality and you like that. By the way, that wasn't a threat. That's not a threat. I've been known to occasionally stroll through Central Park late at night, and upon seeing a mother and child, I'll violently open up a trench coat full of critical race theory and gendered pronouns. Conservatives fear her. And then we go to part two. Have you ever seen a furry in real life? It's fucking terrifying. Those guys are like 6'8". When subcultures and or fandoms bleed into the real world, it's understandably identified as cringe because, you know, sharing a common interest is obviously bad actually. What, you have interests? You have things you like? Grow up. Oh, I'm sorry. Do my facts offend you? In 2004, a 21-year-old started to produce a graphic novel series that slowly took the internet by storm. The author's popularity took off in 2007 when a group of 4chan users discovered the artwork and obviously found it compelling. They began appropriately dissecting this art and formed a stable in-group community around it. The creations of this unknown artist inspired people to continue this community to this very day, and psych bitch, you just got CHRISCHAN. This has been a long time coming. Christine Chandler is the author of these compelling pieces of literature, sparking an online movement unrivaled by even the sweatiest of Reddit users. Christine has since gone on to do some humanitarian crimes, but before that, a bustling group of internet connoisseurs developed a fascination with her and her life, and thus very rationally moved to unethically archive this entire person's life on the internet forever. That way, when the last vessel for the human race dies, there will continue to be a beautifully descriptive biographical account of the average internet user for millennia to come. Okay, so it is at this point I would normally come in with some kind of ethical overview of this situation, try to have compassion for at least one side or the other in order to use this as an effective method of proving my point whilst also being respectful and trying to understand everybody in the situation. It's kind of best practice to be morally good. But to be quite honest, everyone involved in this situation is disgusting in their own ways, and it feels unnecessary to try to make a case for either or. The internet trolls are undoubtedly disgusting for harassing and provoking this individual for years on end. And Christine is also disgusting for the events that transpired in the last few months. See, we got through that. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Every time I type a word in this Google Doc, I slowly slip into a medically induced dissociative state by some heinous act of God the further and further I research this situation. Essentially, I'm the leftist Dennis Prager. This is by far the greatest example of the darkest parts of the online realm seeping into the real world. I mean, besides years of interpersonal encounters between CHRISCHAN and her fans, these people even showed up to her court dates. Now that's commitment. Mia, write a normal video essay challenge, parentheses impossible. I feel like this was going really well, and then boom, a minute and a half of CHRISCHAN discourse. My brain is sufficiently broken. It helped prove my point, but at what cost? Look, I could play the game, I could make a regular video essay, but why be normal when I could just have famed YouTuber CJ the X read a CHRISCHAN quote? Take it away, Mr. the X.
Mia, stop calling me. I don't care about your video. I'm not reading your fucking line. I'm busy. I read philosophy. Why do you think I care what you're doing?
Totally worth it. Okay, so like I was saying, the internet is bad. bad. Subcultures and fandoms are what the internet was founded on. Niche communities are harder to come by in the real world because there are so many people, and also because a lot of interests have been traditionally demonized by wider society, as they should be, thus lending a logical need for people to be able to virtually congregate without the fear of ostracization or even revealing their identities. And that was a great thing. For like 2 minutes. Now it's all bad. Burn it to the ground. This is why we can't have nice things. You people are sick.
Who are you calling you people?
You bitch. Who do you think I am? I will continue to beat you into submission with my logic and reason until you can't handle any more mea culpa bipartisan inescapable truth. Have you ever been to a con? You ever been to Comic-Con? You ever gathered in real life to talk about your secret nerdy interests with other fellow enthusiasts? Have you ever been in a relationship for more than 3 months? Why do you think that is? Conventions are the ultimate case study for the effects of internet corruption, aside from CHRISCHAN. Both the good and the bad are tethered together and put up on a pedestal. You can learn a lot about modern digital culture just by going to one of these gatherings and observing the mannerisms and behaviors of people once they're in the company of others with their shared interests. Okay, so now at this point I need to make it like abundantly clear. When it comes to celebrating differences and similarities, when people come together and are able to just talk about one of their shared interests, I generally think that's a good thing. I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm just shitting on it because I'm a bad person. Also maybe because I didn't get invited to VidCon. Remember earlier when I said people in real life can occasionally be easily identified as a chronically online individual due to a specific look? That wasn't a criticism, that was a personal experience. This is me last week at a party. Yes, I do look like this in real life, it's a problem. Incidentally, at that party, I also got recognized for the first time ever for voicing a line in an FD signifier video, to which I subsequently fully converted to atheism. If there was a god, why would I suffer like this? I like the online aesthetic, and thus I frequently congregate with others who share this common trait. I have nothing against e-girls. I too wear eyeliner and date women with dyed hair. It's a major personality flaw of mine. I love the act of meeting someone new only to have them instantly confess their love of online leftism. I've met real people in real life that watch Twitch streamers. Yes, they're real. Online creators also fall deeply into this category because whilst niche interests are the backbone of the internet, fandoms are what keeps the creator economy going. Subreddits for creators, or even more importantly, merchandise, have become perfect indicators of personal value judgments. Imagine you see a cute guy across the bar and you go up and talk to him and suddenly you realize he's wearing a PragerU shirt. For a lot of people watching, your opinion of him might have just plummeted. For some of you, it might have gone up. And also for quite a few of you, you might probably not know what that is. I know my audience. I know there's a lot of 30-year-olds in the crowd, and I just want you to know that, you know, we see you, we support you. You're so valid. There's also probably a lot of people watching who like just found out about CHRISCHAN, and for that I'm deeply sorry. That's my bad. The fact that certain pieces of merchandise stemming from the online realm allow others to pass judgments onto you is not necessarily a new concept. However, it is muddled and complicated by our newfound obsession with bloodlust. Cancel culture! I mean, you had to have known this was coming at some point. What does one do if, let's say, you own a piece of clothing from your old favorite problematic vlogger? Or maybe you own a palette from your old favorite go-to beauty guru? How will you be judged by others' perception of your manufactured support for people widely deemed to be awful? God, I love my job. I love that I get to rehash 2019 YouTube drama as a job. Speaking of which, consider supporting me on Patreon because AdSense is fickle and you're an empath. This is literally my main source of revenue. There's a ton of extra content over there, and because it's so small, if you support me at the $8 or $12 tier, you're financing like 3 to 5% of this channel's monthly income. That's crazy. I know you love when I do ad reads. You're welcome. God, I have no idea what this video is about anymore. But you like it. You're so retained right now. You feel so audience retention rate engagement core. Leave a comment now if you want me to continue to feed you more prestigious content from my goblet of lies. Groups of people have been gathering based on shared interests for generations. This is not a new concept. But with the rise of this newfound digital ecosystem that we've collectively cultivated, it's easier than ever before to continue to do so. This has affected society both positively and negatively. However, due to the outlandish and oftentimes absurd actions taken by a few who taint the reputation for everyone else. There, I wrote you a stupid conclusion. Are you happy now? It's only getting worse from here. Oh. Welcome back to the Free Speech Zone. God, I love free speech. I love it so much. Oh my Part 3, my audition tape for the Joe Rogan podcast. You know, I've been so goddamn negative recently. Let's be happy. Let's be positive for once. Look, I know you don't like it, liberal, but we have to talk about the positives too.
Sometimes the world isn't bad.
Shut up, shut up. The next part is about radicalization, and I know you people love that shit, so you're welcome. This is called a tolerance break. Sometimes social movements being spread on social media can be a good thing. Sometimes. For better or for worse, if you see something happening in the real world and you don't like it, you can do something about it. Or not. Either way, this is the Free Speech Zone. Welcome to the Free Speech Zone. The internet offers a wide variety of resources and people who are willing to assist you with information, and that's like their job. So capitalism is good, actually. Huh. Well, that solves that. Social movements have become significantly more robust because of this newfound ability to be able to gain a greater organization over a group, and thus they can mobilize quickly in order to protest any tyrannical oversteps of the government, and god damn it, I will get to you guys in a minute. Okay, so as you can tell, there's a very thin line between this being a good or bad thing. Fuck you. Fuck people protesting in the streets because they lost their rights is very different from people doing a domestic crime. However, how these two events come to be is a very similar process. I'm talking about all these complex topics and using all these big words, but I'm yelling under a table. Like, this, I don't know what this is. Pseudo-intellectualism at its finest. When sharing information on social media, as I'm sure you're well aware, sometimes it's bad. The information's not good. The information's very bad. And speaking of bad, how we doing on that Patreon? We there yet? We there? No? No? No, it's cool. I'll come back later. What if I just... There we go. Misinformation, or as she was known before the divorce, Mrs. Information, has spread throughout the world because it's very profitable for people to believe that the world is not the same as it once was. God, I'm going fucking insane. That's why old people are so prone to this phenomenon. Because according to a 2014 study by Stanford University, old people are biologically prone to be more trusting when it comes to others' intentions. And oh no, I just made that up. Oh my God, that felt so good and it was so easy. Okay, actually just Googled it and that might actually be true. What? Let's be honest, you'll believe whatever I say because my image strikes the fear of God into the average passerby. I look like the physical embodiment of whatever postmodern neo-Marxism is. I think it's because of the fishnet. She approaches you on the street holding a shiv and a Shure SM7B. How do you open? However, using this newfound ability to spread word quickly and get information out there, an industry of both communities and creators have sprung up around it in order to form a kind of fortified wall to fact check and point out where sources disagree. That's why every time PragerU posts a YouTube video, there's 5 different video essayists lined up and scrambling to write a 20,000 word dissertation on why recycling is Marxist or something. I don't know what you people do. There are tons of individuals who spend massive amounts of time researching and learning just so we can have accurate information right at our fingertips, but boring. When do I get to talk about Instagram infographics? Part 3.5, the death of modern society and why it's your fault. Instagram infographics have been around forever, but sprung up in popularity in the summer of 2020 after events. During this time, people were using these graphics to share information that may or may not be relevant to everybody, but they were also using it as a kind of personal value judgment. I love playing the game of social virtue signaling with people's rights. Oh, you're oppressed? I support you. I support you. That's so fire, I'm gonna post that. What? You didn't share the new infographic a 15-year-old white girl made on her iPad Pro about how to end racism in 7 easy steps? Why do you hate people of color? This was fascinating to watch. But before I say any more, I must confess, at first, very briefly, I shared them. I did. I didn't know what to do. I was a confused white teenager with lots of privilege. Father, forgive my sins. But luckily, I was soon able to quickly fall down a good rabbit hole and I learned a lot and I was able to finally sit on the sidelines and watch this unfold. Because it truly was a social game. It was a ton of white people like myself who've lived in the suburbs all their lives are suddenly finding out about what it's like to experience racism in America and they had no idea what to do and they just started fucking throwing shit at it in some desperate attempt to show support for a movement that is so complex and can't be solved just by purely showing interest. 'Twas privileged activism, my favorite. And it was fascinating to watch because, if I may speak for my fellow clued-in pasty peers, this was the first time a lot of us learned about the system of oppression that we've benefited from. I mean, at least speaking for the young people anyway. Now, if you're watching this in a school, please skip to part 4 because we have more CRT incoming. I have so many new pronouns to teach you. You gotta hand it to a few people though, because there are some people in like their mid-20s who just found out about systemic racism, and that must be like fucking wild. This was the most amazing thing to watch, but the effects of it were unclear. One part of me wants to simultaneously criticize the performative activism of it all, whilst also praising those who were able to leverage this interest into support for the movement by going out and protesting, which I do think is genuinely a good thing. I had lots of friends who were both insufferably resharing these posts, but also going to marches and donating to organizations. They put their money where their mouth was, as did I. So I do want to see both sides of this, but the other part of me knows that that group of people is probably outnumbered at least 2 to 1 by those who are just playing a zero-sum game of 4D chess with their peers. I'm not racist. Are you racist? I'm not racist. Are you? I'm not. Are you? Cool. So for those people, this might actually have been the one time where their online image and persona should have bled into reality. They should have been affecting real social change, but instead they chose not to. But again, I can't personally claim this was all bad. I mean, after all, it sent me and probably a few others down a 2-year-long rabbit hole where we're just constantly learning. That's not something I would have known to do otherwise. Talking about racism as I'm listening to Post Malone. I am part of the problem. And viewing the situation from the lens of widespread cultural change, it didn't have the impact a lot of us adorably thought it would. And by us, I do mean white people. But either way, I digress. From a sociological view, this was fascinating to watch though, as millions of people who don't experience racism, like myself, suddenly realized the severity of the situation, and in an attempt to do anything about it, used the weakest form of protest in some vain attempt to make it all better, as if this was ever gonna do anything. The one time I give you permission to do internet corruption and you blew it. Do it, do the thing, do the title. I'm going to slap all of you. Disrespect me again and you'll feel the warm embrace of death envelop you like pollen on a blooming flower. You're going to be eaten by bees. God, I'm a genius. Oh my God. I've said before that I reject the prodigy label that many thrust upon me, but it's hard not to give in to temptation with all these narcissistic fantasies flowing through my head with every passing word I pen to this digital paper. Some call it a personality disorder. I call it fun at parties. I used to call myself great because of devastatingly low self-esteem. Now I do it because I feel like I'm better than everybody. This is the best pipeline I've ever heard of. Hey, speaking of pipe, part 4, radicalization. This one doesn't get a funny title. You don't deserve a funny title. You lost your privileges after that little stunt you pulled back there. As a mother, I've never been so embarrassed. As I'm sure we're all aware, we have a bit of a situation on our hands. Grandma went on Meta, and now suddenly she's saying slurs you didn't even know existed. Radicalization is a very easy thing to accomplish online. Sending your audience down a plethora of rabbit holes is a cool, fun, and efficient way to get your beliefs to be more widespread and mainstream. Thanks a lot, neoliberalism. This doesn't just work for political ideology, though. Any school of thought you seek to benefit from can be broadcast in this way. I made a whole video essay earlier this year on how nihilistic ideology gets spread through social media and why legitimizing doomer mentality in this way is harmful. Honestly, it's a 6 out of 10. Could have done better. Then I made a 5-minute essay on nihilism and the internet. Then I wrote a real essay on nihilism and radicalization. Point is, I'm insufferable and someone needs to take my phone. I've been thinking about this issue for a while now. How do you get one point of view out of your head amongst the millions of others who have an opinion, disperse that amongst a group of people, incentivize them to agree with you, and then weaponize it for your own monetary or political gain? It's literally just how you make a viral video. At this point, I'm out here studying the philosophy of political ideals because I can't break 60K views on a YouTube video. That's what I call dedication to the medium. No, thank you. So how do people use this tool and what are they accomplishing from it? The alt-right pipeline is not a new thing. This has been a problem that's been ongoing for years. But what is it about the far-right conservative online underbelly that makes them one of the most sophisticated radicalization groups of all time? Why don't other schools of beliefs have the same effect? Well, typically in modern society, it's seen as a relatively good thing to at least appear semi-progressive, both as an interpersonal decision and as a business move. I wonder why. And thus, ultra-extreme conservative ideals were just marginalized enough that they were still comfortable being spoken in private, but also even more so through the anonymity of the online realm. Forums like 4chan started popping off and suddenly the free speech zone was born. And because of this, people who believed in this far-right ideology were able to much more quickly and efficiently develop systems of recruitment. Their propaganda was made and distributed through these robust systems, and it was a tried and true method for converting people to their ideology. This is why their pipeline is so much more sophisticated. They've had to build it for years. Oh my God, it's just like Stranger Things. Honestly, Ben Shapiro is so Stranger Things core. He's so Will Byers. People didn't even start getting privy to their actions until 2016 when events happened. This all culminated at the Unite the Right rally in August of 2017 in Charlottesville, where more events happened. I've been talking all night about the quintessential example to prove my theory of what the online does to your brain and how it invades your real life, but if you want a perfect example of what internet corruption is, it's this. And it's this. And it's this. It's all of these events and more. The internet doesn't become real when it seeps into the real world, because the internet isn't reality. But for these people, it became that. It seeped into their heads, and they're no longer the same people they once were. Radicalization on the internet can be a devastating thing, and it's been shown time and time again, as there are countless stories out there about the true effects of these rabbit holes and how they can damage somebody permanently. Losing a loved one to hate-filled ideology and having your family torn apart because of it sounds unimaginably painful. The alt-right pipeline is strong, especially on this platform. Think tanks sponsored by oil barons, self-hating queer people, and the entire Shapiro family are your entry level. And then slowly but surely you fall deeper and deeper into the depths of the manosphere, conspiracy theories, the Chan boards. Manufactured outrage forces people to take sides in a never-ending game of culture war bullshit. It doesn't seek to benefit anybody involved except for the people at the very top who financially gain from moral panic in their supporters' corner and apathy and outrage in their oppositions. But that's enough Marxism for today. Wait a second. Marxism. Part 4.5. Wash your sins in the blood of those before you. You're not clean and you never will be. Let's talk about the alt-left pipeline. This too has been a long time coming. Oh, I will be name dropping every video topic you people ever suggested, all in one. Don't ever say I didn't feed you. Quick disclaimer, I'm not trying to imply, nor do I believe that the alt-left pipeline is at all comparable to the alt-right pipeline. So far, it's been repeatedly demonstrated that far-left radicalization leads to teenage socialism, whereas far-right radicalization leads to yikes. As a bona fide expert in the alt-right radicalization machine, having built a prototype myself, I feel more than comfortable with diagnosing the entirety of the left-wing version with having significant plot holes, and thus I will attempt to prescribe remedies for this as well as the entirety of left-leaning politics in America. You're welcome. Trust me, I know radicalization. Here's how you can do a better job. And if there are any far-right content creators watching this, this is a bit, this is all a joke. Don't listen to any of this. Problem number 1, lack of entry-level creators. Where are the people who agree with your ideas but don't verbalize it super often, thus gaining mainstream appeal from even those who might be challenged by your ideas but are reeled in with adjacent video topics that aren't implicitly political whilst also making points in your favor? Where are those? Moving on. Problem number 2, you need a unified message. I feel like a football coach yelling at high schoolers. Radicalized individuals on the right figured out this problem years ago. They had a rally called Unite the Right. The issue the left is facing is you guys don't have a unified voting bloc. Everybody technically falls on the side of Democrat, but when you have centrist, liberals, and leftists all voting under the same bloc, in order to appease everyone, your message has to be watered down to the bare bones concepts and ideas that it once was, thus leaving those who are farther on the spectrum to be disappointed. And when one side is constantly disappointed, it creates disgruntlement amongst them and their peers. This causes ostracization and leftist infighting. You can't be doing that shit. Knock it off. People on the right, even further on the centrist side, are able to support extreme candidates because they understand that they're able to benefit from their policies whilst also not really caring if they go farther than that. Even if they disagree with those far-right ideals, they're generally not going to care enough to vote Democrat. Whereas centrists on the left have shown time and time again that they're not willing to vote for someone who appeals to a broader leftist framework. These are the people who are all about inclusion and diversity until they found out about they/them pronouns and promptly freaked the fuck out. But the remedy to this is not infighting, it's genuine discussion, and it has to be widespread. But for now, you have to play the game and accept that you're far behind the unity of your opposition. You need to put the work in order to accomplish your political goals. This is, I am way out of line here. What was my thread again? Oh, right, yeah. So sometimes the internet's real. That's crazy. The rabbit hole is being built. It's starting to get there. Maybe you could click on a Noah Samson video because you're an average millennial guy who generally thinks misogyny bad. Then you find yourself watching an FD signifier video. Now you're learning about the systemic properties of racism. And then finally, next thing you know, you're watching Hassan Piker yell about socialism. Just like that. There you go. Now just rinse and repeat that process about 150 million times across thousands of similar creative streamlines and you've got yourself a unified voting block. Bada bing, bada boom. Was that so hard? Part 5. Does any of this matter? Mia, don't make the last part of your video sad challenge. Parentheses impossible. Internet corruption this, internet corruption that. The online is bleeding into real world, guys. Oh my god, what does this mean? Cool. And? I often wonder about the idea of presenting problems in this neatly packaged content engagement, hit that like button, subscribe to that bell format without actually providing any solutions. I tend to do a lot of descriptive work on here. I'm always diagnosing a problem without the insight of actually being able to prescribe a way to fix any of it. Except for the political leftism radicalization part. That was sick. But presenting a problem and then therefore not doing anything to solve it, at that point, are you just making content for content's sake? As I've presented thusly, internet corruption is a bit of a mixed bag. It can't be solved with a blanket statement of its overall virtue, but I do think it's at least important to be aware of how your digital life impacts your day-to-day life. My digital life impacts my real life in that, let's be honest, I'm never getting employed. Like, you've seen this shit, right? At this point, this is my only option. How does your online persona differ from who you truly are at a time where companies are investing in digital universes that they want you to live in? So you're gonna be spending more time on the internet, which is why I think now it's more important than ever to understand how the internet affects you, because there may soon be a time where the internet has an even larger impact on you than it does today. But does any of this matter is a pretty pessimistic framing of the issue, right? Of course these discussions matter. I'm sure if you've made it this far, we both probably have a mutual love of this long form medium. So yes, this discourse we're having is valuable, But is it gonna change anything? Now, all of this has been about when the digital becomes the real, right? But if I am to flip this entire video on its head, I have to ask you a question. What happens when the real becomes digital? This is my side. The people like me putting all that they have into one project after the next and throwing it into the void for you. Is that act valuable? My initial response is yes, of course. If these discussions are valuable, then of course the medium carrying the discussions are also valuable. That's just inherent. But sometimes my goal isn't to start a discussion. Sometimes it's to entertain. Sometimes it's to intrigue. You can always tell what is what based off the runtime of a video. If you see a 10 to 15 minute Mia Cole video, you're gonna have a good time. You see a 30+ minute video, oh my god, you're fucking in for it. So is creating content for the vacuous expanse of the internet a good thing? Yes? No? Yeah, no, yes? I'm inclined to believe it matters. I think you like what I do, and I hope you continue to do so. Especially over on patreon.com/MiaCole. I'll stop, I'm sorry. Now, of course, I want to feel this way. I have some bias. I spent my entire life on this. What am I gonna just say it doesn't fucking matter? Bye, LOL. I wanna believe this does hold value, and I think I know it does. But I think I also know it probably doesn't hold as much as I'd like it to. How do you benefit society? I make YouTube videos. It doesn't have the best ring to it. I implore any other content creators watching this to truly look into your content specifically and try to see if it matters. And then of course, if you decide to quit, please send your audience over here. We'd love to have them. The Mia Cole community is a welcoming place to all, even the haters and losers. Except for CJ the X fans.
Mia, shut the fuck up!
I will now return from whence I came into a deep slumber, dreaming soundly of my boy crush Jordan Peterson and postmodern neo-Marxism. I'm sipping insert non-alcoholic fruity beverage on the beaches of the collapse of Western society, reading 1984 and silently whispering to myself about how Orwell's nightmare came to reality. And to that, I say good night. And also, go fuck yourself.
I just crashed and got some classic whiplash. I take a look up out the window when I see this red flash. Cannot believe all this shit that's right in front of me. I can't deceive all the people listening to me breathe. I'm fucking